Your definition of a favela is about to be shattered. Our journey begins in the sewer and ends in a luxurious and insane mansion with a pool. In the heart of South America, there's a country within a country, a nation invisible to most, yet pulsating with the energy of millions of souls. A territory not officially mapped, but whose borders are felt on the skin. This isn't the Brazil of samba, white sand beaches, and the artful football they sell on postcards. This is the Brazil of vertical citadels, of labyrinths of concrete and brick that cling to the hillsides like living creatures, defying gravity and the state itself. Welcome to the favelas, a universe of contrast so brutal the mind can barely process them, where the stench of open sewers mixes with the aroma of barbecue on a rooftop slab, where the deafening sound of baile funk competes with the echo of armed confrontations, a place where the engineering of necessity has erected homes in impossible places, where a deadly web of electrical wires illuminates dreams and ignites nightmares, and where life and death dance a dangerous tango on every corner. Prepare for a journey through 9 dwellings that define the soul of these communities, from stilt houses floating on a sea of waste to shacks that are veritable death traps, all the way to Rio de Janeiro's best-kept secret, an insane mansion, a fortress of luxury with an infinity pool and $1 million view hidden in plain sight in the beating heart of one of the most iconic favelas on the planet. Pay close attention, because what you're about to see will redefine everything you thought you knew about poverty, wealth, and survival in Brazil. The journey to the epicenter of the Brazilian soul begins now. To understand how these fortresses of resilience came to be, you have to go back in time, to a Brazil that had just broken the chains of slavery but refused to make a place for its own people. The story of the name favela is born from the blood and dust of one of the country's most brutal conflicts, the War of Canudos. The soldiers who returned victorious to Rio de Janeiro at the end of the 19th century were promised a place to live by the government. The promise, like so many others, turned to dust. With nowhere to go, they occupied a hill in the city center, a place they christened Morro da Favela, or Favela Hill, in honor of a resilient plant that covered the hill where they fought in Canudos. Little did they know they were christening the future of all of Brazil's major cities. The 20th century arrived with the mirage of industrialization, and millions of Brazilians left the countryside in search of a better life. A gigantic human wave that landed in Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo. But the cities weren't ready. There weren't enough houses, not enough jobs for everyone. Pushed to the outskirts and onto the hills, places no one wanted, these people began to build their own world with their own hands. And it was in this abandonment, in this no man's land, that a new way of building, a new way of living began to take shape. An architecture not born from an architect's drafting table, but from the desperate urgency of needing a roof over one's head. And the first roofs were the very picture of desperation. Our journey begins in the stagnant, fetid waters that border the great metropolises. Here, there is no solid ground, only an urban swamp where the city dumps everything it doesn't want to see. And upon this toxic soup rise the stilt houses. Don't imagine romantic cabins over a crystal-clear lake. Imagine fragile wooden structures propped up by stilts that slowly sink into the contaminated mud. Beneath the floorboards, a carpet of plastic trash and raw sewage serves as a breeding ground for rats and disease-carrying mosquitoes. Children play inches from this poisoned water, and any heavy rain raises the swamp's level, turning the home's floor into an island surrounded by the community's own waste. It's an amphibious existence, a precarious balance between the promised land and the liquid hell that surrounds it. From this war against the water, we climb to the war against gravity. On the near-vertical hillsides of Rio, Salvador, and Belo Horizonte, we see what can only be described as a miracle and a nightmare of popular engineering. These are the cliff houses, warts of concrete and brick clinging to the mountainside, built on land that any geological survey would instantly condemn.
They lean on each other in a cascade of improvisations that defies logic. For the resident of one of these houses, the rainy season is a period of terror. Every night of a storm is a sleepless night, listening to the sounds of the earth. The crack of a beam, the sound of rolling stones, the constant fear that this will be the day the mountain decides to reclaim its space. Landslides are a real and constant threat, a game of Russian roulette where the bet is life itself. And every year, entire families are buried alive as they sleep. The view might be spectacular, a panorama of the city stretching out below, but it's a beauty purchased at the price of daily fear. A ringside seat to a private apocalypse. If the house isn't on the water or on the edge of an abyss, it's probably squeezed, suffocated by the incessant multiplication of its neighbors. In the densest favelas, like Parasiopolis in São Paulo, a concrete monster that houses over 100,000 people, the phenomenon of the infinite puxadinho, add-on, was born. The concept is simple. Did the family grow? Build a new room. Did the son get married? Put up a new floor. The result is an architectural organism that grows endlessly outwards and especially upwards. 5, 6, 7-story buildings are erected without a single engineer, without a blueprint, based only on intuition and necessity. The foundations, designed for a single-story house, now support a tower. Sunlight becomes a luxury item restricted to the highest floors. The lower apartments are plunged into a perpetual, damp, and poorly ventilated gloom. Privacy becomes a fiction. You hear the argument of the neighbor below, the music of the neighbor above, you smell the food of the neighbor next door. It's a human beehive, a structure that groans under its own weight, where every resident prays that the intuition of the builder on the floor below was good enough to not bring it all down. The physical proximity is total, but often the emotional isolation is even greater, lost in a vertical labyrinth where the sky is just a distant memory. And in this labyrinth, in its deepest and most forgotten levels, we find the alleys. But not the charming alleys of a historic European city. We're talking about crevices between buildings so narrow you have to walk sideways to get through. Dark, damp corridors where daylight is a rare and fleeting visitor. And there, you find doors. Doors that open into homes that exist in an eternal night. Dwellings where the only window opens to a brick wall less than 3 feet away. The air is heavy, thick with the smell of mold and the smoke from neighboring stoves. Claustrophobia is a constant companion. For the children who grow up here, the world is a hallway. The sky is a sliver of blue or gray far above, an almost abstract sight. To live in the sunless alley is to live in the bowels of the favela, in the deepest part of the organism where light and fresh air have become legends told by the elders. It's a subterranean existence, despite being hundreds of feet above sea level. Proof that in a favela, the geography of survival rewrites all the laws of nature and well-being.
But the darkness of the alleys is fought by a light that defies the law and death itself. Above the narrow lanes and rooftops, another kind of labyrinth stretches out, an aerial nervous system, chaotic and lethal. It is the kingdom of the gato, the network of clandestine electrical connections that powers the favela. Imagine a 1,000-tentacled monster, a shapeless mass of black wires twisting around each other, climbing up poles, stretching between houses, passing inches from windows and clotheslines. It's a spider web that promises light but can spit fire at any moment. The community electricians, men with no formal training but with the courage born of necessity, scale rotting wooden poles, barefoot, to run another wire to give power to one more family. They are heroes and walking Russian roulettes. Children flying kites have to dodge this deadly wiring, and a wire stripped bare by the rain can electrify a puddle of water, turning it into a trap. On windy days, the wires swing, touch, and the resulting spark can start a fire that, due to the wooden houses and narrow alleys where firefighters can't reach, can become an uncontrollable inferno, devouring dozens of homes in a matter of minutes. This is the light of the favela, essential, stolen, and terrifyingly dangerous. And with electricity comes connection to the world. The same tangle of wires often carries Gato.net, the pirated cable TV and internet signal, ensuring that even in the humblest shack, the soap opera, the soccer game, and social media are present. It's a brutal paradox. 21st century technology arrives via a 19th century makeshift contraption. But while the connection to the virtual world is guaranteed, the connection to basic sanitation remains a mirage. The same community that has high-speed internet access often doesn't have access to running water. The scene is a daily, soul-crushing one. Women, the elderly, and children climb up and down hundreds of steep steps, carrying heavy buckets of water for cooking, drinking, and bathing. And where does this water go after it's used? It flows back down the same path, but now in open ditches, rivers of sewage that cut through the favela, carrying diseases and an odor that permeates the air, the clothes, and the skin itself. It's a medieval reality coexisting with the digital age, a daily slap in the face to anyone who believes that progress reaches everyone. The house may have a flat-screen TV, but the bathroom might just be a hole in the floor that empties directly into the alley.
But there is an even more extreme level of existence, a place where the very foundation of the home is a monument to misery. On the edges of some favelas, stuck to the large sanitary landfills, the lixões or garbage dumps, we find the house built on trash. Not next to it, but literally on top of mountains of debris compacted over decades. The ground beneath these residents' feet is an unstable layer of plastic, glass, and decomposing organic matter, which releases methane gas, an invisible and flammable poison. The air is almost unbreathable, a sickening mix of the smell of rot and the toxic smoke from burning trash. The ambient sound is that of machinery churning the debris and the cries of seagulls fighting over scraps. For the inhabitants of these homes, the dump isn't just a neighbor, it's their source of livelihood. From dawn, men, women, and children venture into the debris, the catadores, or waste pickers, prospecting for what the city has discarded: aluminum, cardboard, food. Their homes, often built with materials found in the trash itself, are extensions of the landfill. To live here is to be at the final stop in the consumer chain, to reside on the tomb of society's waste, a ghostly existence that most people pretend doesn't exist. However, even at the epicenter of abandonment, amid the trash, the darkness, and the danger, the human soul refuses to be buried. And it is at this point that the favela reveals its most powerful and fascinating face, that of creativity as a weapon for survival and dignity. It's the house that refuses to be just a shelter and transforms itself into a canvas, a declaration of war against the ugliness and the gray of the concrete. In communities like Morro do Fogueteiro in Rio or in the alleys of São Paulo, entire facades explode in vibrant colors. Walls that were once marked by water damage and time now boast spectacular graffiti murals, works of art that tell the community's story, its heroes, its dreams. Local artists, many of them internationally recognized, turn the alley into an open-air art gallery. And the creativity doesn't stop with paint. Old tires become colorful planters, plastic bottles are transformed into vertical gardens, and discarded objects are given new life for decoration. This house is not just a place to live, it is an act of resistance, a visual manifesto that screams to the city below, "We are here. We have color, and we are proud of who we are." It is proof that beauty can be born from the cracks in the system. And if horizontal space is limited, the solution is to conquer the sky. The laje, the flat brick and cement roof, is the most democratic and valuable territory in the favela. It is the hill's private beach, the community's exclusive club, the people's VIP box. On sunny weekends, the lajes transform. A 1,000-liter plastic pool is set up, the makeshift barbecue is lit, and powerful speakers make the floor tremble with the latest funk hit. This is where social life happens. It's the space for a family barbecue, a birthday party, a gathering of friends. But the laje is more than a leisure space. It's an escape. From up there, far from the tightness of the alleys, a resident can finally breathe. And more than that, they can see. And the view, my friends, the view from the laje is Brazil's greatest and most cruel paradox. From that improvised terrace, surrounded by poverty, a breathtaking panorama unfolds. The entire city at your feet, the mountains, the forest, and the infinite blue sea. It's a million-dollar view, enjoyed for free from a place the real estate market considers worthless. The Lodge is the symbolic possession of the beauty that the formal city tries to sell at exorbitant prices. Keep this image of the Lodge in your mind, its social power and its spectacular view, because it is this very concept of possessing the world's most incredible view from the top of the favela that has been taken to an unimaginable extreme, to a level of luxury and audacity that leads us directly to our last and most unbelievable home. The climax of our journey is near.
This image of the Lodge, this democratic terrace from which the city's most beautiful view is stolen, is the key to understanding the final act of our journey. Because what happens when this concept is hijacked, privatized, and taken to an extreme of opulence that borders on the surreal? What happens when a single individual decides to have for himself not just the rooftop, but the entire hill as his private garden? To find out, we are going to the epicenter of Rio de Janeiro's real estate desire, a place squeezed between the two most expensive neighborhoods in Brazil, Leblon and São Conrado. A favela that became a brand name, a tourist destination, an object of international desire. We are going up Vidiga. The ascent itself is an immersion. You don't go by luxury car. The best way is on the back of a motorcycle taxi, driven by a young man who knows every curve and every pothole of the winding road that snakes up the hill. The wind hits your face, the sound of the engine echoes through the alleys, and with each turn, the city below reveals itself more and more stunning. We pass by bars, by beauty salons, by children playing soccer. It's the pulsating life of the community, authentic and chaotic. And it is in the middle of this scene, on a narrow street, that our destination presents itself. There's no neon sign, no grand facade. Just a high wall with a simple and discreet metal door, almost camouflaged among the exposed brick houses. It could be the entrance to any residence, but what lies behind that door does not belong to this world. The moment the door opens, the sound of the favela dies. Chaos gives way to silence. The tightness of the alleys is replaced by a wide open space with a double-height ceiling that defies the logic of construction on the hill. The floor isn't burnt cement, but polished concrete, reflecting the light that pours in through gigantic windows, floor-to-ceiling glass panels that turn the landscape outside into a living work of art. There are no makeshift solutions, no exposed wires. The architecture is minimalist, brutalist, with designer furniture that costs more than most of the neighboring houses. The kitchen, with its marble island and state-of-the-art appliances, looks like it's straight out of a design magazine. We go down a floating staircase and find the bedrooms, suites that open onto private balconies, each with the same stunning view of the sea. It's a fortress of luxury, a designer bunker carved into the rock of the hill, invisible to anyone on the outside. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepares you for the top floor, the terrace, the crown jewel. As you climb the last flight of stairs, the sunlight blinds you for a moment, and then the image reveals itself in all its absurd glory. Before you, an elegant wooden deck, and on it, the materialization of the most improbable dream, an infinity pool. The blue water merges with the blue of the ocean below, creating the illusion that you are floating over the city. From the water, you look to the right and see Ipanema Beach, Arpoagor. You look straight ahead and see the Cagares Islands. You are suspended between the sky and the sea, with the gentle sound of overflowing water, while hundreds of feet below, life in the favela continues, with its noise, its struggle, its energy. This is no longer the community's laje. It is the privatized rooftop. It is the ultimate VIP box. It is the ultimate appropriation of the favela's greatest asset, its spectacular view transformed into a luxury item for a single owner.
It is the definitive proof that in Brazil, money can buy not only space, but reality itself. The question that echoes in the mind is, how? How is this possible? The answer is a word that changed the face of many of Rio's favelas: pacification. With the arrival of the police and the expulsion of armed drug trafficking control in areas like Vidigal, a relative sense of security was established, and with security came capital. Investors, many of them foreigners, saw the potential of that place. Favela chic became fashionable. Hostels, bars, and restaurants began to sprout, attracting tourists and celebrities in search of an authentic experience. And in their wake came those who wanted more than a visit. They wanted a piece of paradise. They began to buy houses from longtime residents, often for amounts that were trivial by the city's standards, and to build their private sanctuaries. But this phenomenon has a dark side. The arrival of this capital inflated the cost of living. Rent became more expensive. The official electricity bill arrived, and many residents, whose families had lived there for generations, were forced to move, pushed out not by violence, but by gentrification. The mansion in the favela is therefore a symbol of a new battle, the fight for the community's soul, between the progress that arrives for a few and the preservation of the local culture. And so our journey is complete. We began in the mud, in houses fighting not to be swallowed by water and sewage. We crossed hillsides where living is an act of faith against the force of gravity. We crossed labyrinths of concrete and darkness, dodged deadly electrical webs, and witnessed life flourishing on mountains of trash. We saw creativity transform chaos into beauty, and the laje become the beating heart of celebration. And we ended here, on top of the world, in an infinity pool where the most extreme luxury and the most visible poverty coexist, separated only by a wall. The 9 homes we visited are not just buildings. They are chapters in the history of Brazil, a country of savage contradictions, of an inequality that wounds the soul, but also of a resilience and a capacity to create and celebrate life that defies all explanation. The favela is not a problem to be solved. It is a mirror that reflects what Brazil is, in all its pain and all its glory. We hope this video has helped you discover Brazil from an angle that few dare to show. If this journey has impacted you, be sure to hit that like button and leave a comment. It's the best way to help us continue working every week to bring you content as fascinating as this. And now, click the video appearing on your screen to discover what life is like in the most densely populated place on Earth. Believe us, you won't want to miss it.